What's good, Panda fam? Koyuki Panda here, and I am back with another video. Those of you who are new to my channel, I'm Koyuki Panda. I am a freelance illustrator and aspiring comic and manga artist. In today's video, I'm going to give you a few practical techniques and tips to improve your inking and your line art. I'm going to be using some of the supplies from my favorite inking supplies video, so if you haven't seen that, pause the video, go and check it out. You should use it as a point of reference for inking tools. Some of the inking tools in here, like I said, will be in that video, but there will also be other inking tools in that video that will not be in this video. So be sure to check that out. Also, before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so that you will always know when I upload. Let's get to the video. So, the first inking technique is called cross contour or contour hatching. So cross contour, good lord, cross contour or contour hatching are lines that travel across the form of the subject, basically the contour of the subject. And cross contour lines can be horizontal or vertical, or they can be both. The point of the technique is to reflect the form of the subject or the object that is being depicted. Basically to describe the form, like in the volume to the viewer. The next technique is scumbling. So scumbling is a technique that is essentially controlled scribbling, or I hate this word, but doodling. Basically, there's no real pattern to this technique other than the closer the lines are together, the darker the area becomes. The point of this technique is kind of to build up volume and texture, which can make for a pretty interesting looking piece. So it's not really my favorite technique. I know it's very it's used in painting to show color. It's not really my favorite, but I could see the appeal when you add color to this kind of technique. So the next is stippling. Stippling is a technique that uses dots as the source of both the texture and the shading. So this technique relies on the solidarity or lack thereof in the placement of these dots. Basically how tight the dots are together, creating a shadow, or how spaced out they are, creating a texture. Because of that, this technique can take a piece forever to finish. Like working on this example piece, it took a while. I even tried to fast forward it faster. It still took a while. Anyway, to pass the time, I am drawing over Carol and Tuesday from the anime Carol and Tuesday, directed by Shinichiro Watanabe. It's on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. It's a very good anime. I love it. Especially if you're a music lover, definitely check it out. It's a little, it's something to pass the time. Anyway, the next technique is linear hatching. So linear hatching is a technique that is used to express tone and shade by drawing several parallel lines that are closely spaced together. You can see this technique, the linear hatching technique, a lot in anime and in manga. And actually, out of all these techniques, this is probably one of my favorite techniques to use. It's really easy. I like to use this technique in combination with cross contouring, which I spoke of at the beginning, and spot filling, or like solid blacks, which I will get to later. Like I said, it's my personal favorite. super easy to do, and I think it's the best way for someone to break into inking or experimenting with inks. Next is cross-hatching. So cross-hatching is very similar to linear hatching due to the close space of the parallel lines. But the twist to cross-hatching is you have to overlay another set of parallel lines at an angle on top of the first set of parallel lines that you've already drawn down. So basically, if this was math, people are not gonna like this, but basically linear hatching plus linear hatching at an angle equals cross hatching. I feel like this technique can look really good in combination with linear hatching because it creates more shadow without looking like too jarring, but you can use it whenever you want, to be honest. The next technique is called spot filling or solid black. I mentioned it earlier. This technique is probably the easiest looking, but it's also probably the hardest. Why is it the hardest? It is the hardest because the success of this technique depends on the artist's comprehension on chiaroscuro. So while lighting is kind of an important prerequisite to like both this guide and like being an artist in general, that knowledge is important, but I feel like the idea of chiaroscuro gets glossed over a lot of times. And what chiaroscuro is basically a strong contrast. It's the use of strong contrast between light and dark within a piece. Basically, it's like lighting 101 on Red Bull. And a lot of the old Renaissance and Baroque period like artists, all the great masters, they used to use this technique. It's useful and it's a classic. So the last inking technique is actually ink wash. So I'm not gonna lie, this is probably not my favorite technique and I don't use it very often, which will soon be painfully apparent. Ink wash is essentially a technique that blends inking and painting. It's a wet medium that is used with a brush. And the value that you get from the ink is depending on the ratio of water to ink. The ink is controlled by the amount of water that is used where the ink will be applied. So the more ink or the less water will change the greatness and value in the piece. I believe ink wash started in Asia, I believe. It's challenging. It's not my favorite, I'm not gonna lie. But you can make some really cool effects with it, so it's very useful to master. But it's definitely not my favorite. But yeah. Hey you guys, thanks for watching. That's it. Those are all of my tips. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that these tips were useful to you, that you found them to be helpful. Write a comment down below and let me know which tip was your favorite, which tip was something that you've never tried before, or a new tip, a new like technique, an inking technique that you'd use that I didn't mention in the video. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, like it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And just a little shameless plug here, if you guys are interested in my art and you want to support me, please come to my Patreon. Consider being one of my Patreons and help support me for a low monthly fee of $1 a month. Thank you guys very, very much. I love you. Thank you for watching and sticking with me to the end. And I will see you in the next one. Peace!